Network. This is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. Tonight we're talking about what everyone is talking about, the zero tolerance policy and what is happening on the border. Of course, today President Trump signed an executive order that will end the practice of separating children from their families, but there is still a lot to unpack and a lot to talk about when it comes to this. We're happy to have with us Wade Munday, Executive Director of Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. This is a nonprofit immigration law firm, right?
That's right, a ministry of the United Methodist Church, too.
Ministry of the United Methodist Church.
Yeah.
All right, and so I guess what are we seeing in Tennessee? How does what is happening on the border impact us here in Tennessee?
Yeah, well, it's nothing new. As we've known for decades now, there has been a lot of illegal immigration to the United States, and we see that here in Tennessee. There are 110,000 people living unlawfully in the state of Tennessee. This particular situation is quite different. What these are child refugees at our border, and since 2018 began, more than 600 child refugees have been resettled in Tennessee, and they're being placed with their nearest relatives or family members, friends of family members. They're being placed here as sponsors in order to live safely. They cannot return home because of the violence. Perhaps their parents have been murdered by gangs, or their parents are negligent, and so the only place for them to turn is to family or friends here in Tennessee who are living lawfully. So this is an entirely different situation from what you think of as the ordinary immigration debate. It's one that involves child refugees.
And what do you think about what we've seen? This has certainly come to light over the last several days. You know, President Trump signed this executive order today. You know, what are your thoughts as all of this has unfolded?
Well, I think it jars our collective conscience as a country. What do we do in a situation like this where we see images, new or old, of children who are being held in cages? And I think if you have to parse the meaning of what a cage is, then you've got a serious moral problem. There's a problem with the way that we're processing these young people and these families across the border. There's a problem with the way that we provide access to justice and lawyers for individuals who are trying to find a lawful way into our country. So my reaction, I think, with many people around the country, especially people of faith and people with a conscience, is revulsion. No child should be treated this way.
And what do you think of what the president signed today?
I think it's a great step in the right. I think it's a great step. You know, I would give him credit for that. It's still not where we need to be precisely. There are still families that are separated that need to be reunited. The administration has signaled that they will not go to any special effort to reunite these family members. Some children have been sent from the Texas-Mexico border to Seattle or to Virginia, and the administration is not going to move to reunite those families, and that trauma still lingers for a child who's separated from his parents very early in life. And so I don't think they're doing enough to address that right now. But again, I give the president credit and the administration credit for recognizing this public outcry. This is an issue, and this is a country that doesn't stand for that.
This has gone on. I feel like it's come to the public attention fairly recently. It's gone on for a little bit longer. When did it come to your attention, you know, with what it is you do as a nonprofit immigration law firm? You know, when did you start getting a sense of what was happening?
Yeah. So the policies that the administration has been enforcing, albeit to a greater extent under the Trump administration, these are policies that have been in place under the Obama administration, under the George W. Bush administration, so it's nothing new. We became aware of this situation in 2014 and 2015 when there was an influx of unaccompanied minors at our southern border who were being driven out by Central American gang violence. There were areas of those countries where the government was not functioning, police forces were not available, and so gangs were functioning as the government. So individuals couldn't drive to work without paying a toll. Young people were being dragged out of their homes and raped and murdered, and all sorts of awful things were happening. And so that's when thousands and thousands of individuals fled their countries for the United States, and the Office of Refugee Resettlement would place them in places like Tennessee. Over a 3-year period, we saw about 3,500 of those young children relocated to Middle Tennessee, and our attorneys began working to represent the children in immigration court, and our volunteer attorneys started representing the guardians or the sponsors in family court. It's a very complicated legal process that people didn't know about, but it was something that was necessary in order to provide safety for these young people.
That was because they were coming here unaccompanied, is that right?
Right.
They were fleeing this. We're going back now to 2014.
Sure.
We saw an influx of children coming here unaccompanied, seeking asylum, saying it's too dangerous where I live, I need to come here. And then the next step is that they are found a place to live with a family member that's already here?
Well, every individual has their own unique story. So in the immigration debate, we like to paint with a broad brushstroke that they're all the same. They're all criminals, they're all convicts, or they're all victims. It's not the case. But what we have heard most often is, my parents are dead, so I knew about an aunt who lived in Smyrna, and so I hitchhiked across Mexico. I came to the border, and they don't know about our legal process. They don't know how to get an immigration attorney, how to go to an immigration court. They didn't know if they were applying for asylum or special immigrant juvenile status. They just appeared at the border with nowhere else to go. And so, as a country, I think we need to think hard and fast about how we reform our nation's immigration laws. If I'm unable to articulate what those processes are in a succinct way, it's not like you can just fill out a form and you're safe, then I think we need to revise how we communicate that message to other people in other countries too.
And so when President Trump says this has gone on for years, and now we're finally doing something about it, it sounds like that's true. I mean, this has been on the books for a long time.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't enforced as strictly.
Yeah.
Suddenly it was enforced strictly.
Yeah.
And would that have been around April that we started seeing it enforced strictly?
So yeah, about the second quarter of this year, the zero tolerance policy was put in place, which means anyone who arrives at the border will be criminally prosecuted for crossing that border. Now the reversal of that policy under this current executive order is that they'll be placed as a family together. They won't proceed to the Department of Justice. They'll go to Homeland Security, where they will hopefully have an expedited asylum process, or asylum trial. And that's what the current executive order does.
The current executive order, instead of separating the children when they're caught or stopped,
right,
the family stays together.
The children and the families.
And then the family is either given asylum in the United States, they could move and stay with their aunt in Smyrna, or they go back to their country. Is that right? Right.
And the administration has indicated that they will be very tough. The immigration courts are still under the jurisdiction of the executive branch of government. It's not fully judicial branch of government. And so there are policies and rules that govern the immigration courts, and the Trump administration provides guidelines, and they're very tough for people to obtain asylum. There have been rumors that some procedures that were implemented under the Obama administration for people who might identify as LGBTQ can seek asylum in the United States. There's been rumors that Attorney General Jeff Sessions and President Trump would like to reverse that policy so that individuals can't seek asylum. Actually, when President Trump met with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, the same day Attorney General Jeff Sessions declared that we were no longer going to provide asylum for people who are fleeing gang violence in general.
And this is so multifaceted, so complicated. So what do we do to solve this?
Yeah.
How do we make this better? You have President Trump, and I guarantee you we'll get a bunch of calls that will say, we don't have a country if we don't have borders, and we can't just let everybody in, and the worst case scenario, the MS-13, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's terrible that these countries are falling apart. But good grief, it scares people if you have some really dangerous people coming in. That's not the case in most cases. But okay, so what do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do?
The first thing is to take a deep breath, channel some grace and some patience for your neighbor. Whether it's someone who wants to build a wall or someone who wants open borders, find the middle ground there. try to find some patience with the people that you're talking to in your communities, because we've got to stand together if we're going to fight against MS-13 or terrorists around the globe. And then we need to take a hard look at how are we screening individuals who are immigrant or refugee status but not going through the refugee resettlement process. Currently, refugees who are resettled to the United States go through a very rigorous screening. Extreme vetting is what we heard on the campaign trail. So they go through the Department of State, the CIA, FBI, various channels to clear their backgrounds. And they're coming in at very small levels now, if at all. Immigrants need also to be with a trusted lawyer who will verify their information, who will work alongside them and stand up for them in immigration courts. And we need to support immigration courts so that we have more judges who are on the bench. The Trump administration had a goal to double the number of immigration court judges in the United States. That, to my knowledge, was not funded by Congress and will not be funded by Congress. But I think that's a step in the right direction. We need to really think hard about this issue, and I don't think it's been given enough attention throughout the years, because immigrants and refugees are not constituents. They don't vote. So members of Congress don't have motivation to clean up our nation's immigration laws. But we, as constituents, as voters, as donors, do have the power to affect change. And I think that's what we saw this week. So call your members of Congress and let them know what you think. But again, I would caution everyone, act with some patience and kindness to people of whatever political party they're in.
Yeah, and it was the first time I've seen Republicans and Democrats all agree on something when it came to immigration. And they all seem to agree, okay, children should not be separated. Does this move us into is there some opportunity here for even more agreement? Or is this debate, which has always been so divisive, just get more divisive?
Yeah, I think that there is a great opportunity here where we establish a principle that families should be kept together, that children should be treated humanely, and that everyone deserves access to justice. You know, under the 6th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, all people have a right to counsel in a criminal proceeding. And that term, people, it's not U.S. citizens, it's everyone. And so are we doing enough to provide an adequate counsel for people who are fleeing violence around the world?
All right, we're going to take a break. Then we're going to start taking calls. Marsha, James, Barbara, others on the line. Hold on. And there are lines open if you want to call in. There's the number 615-737-PLUS. 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.